My name is Matthew Barish, and I'm here today for another episode of BRASCH Talk, which I've been doing for about 20 years, and this is a really important episode today. Today I have my guest, Josh Brown.
Hey, how's it going, man?
Josh Brown is in from Fort Worth, Texas, and he's actually moved to LA recently, and he's here to tell us about a very important issue facing thousands and thousands of Americans today. Josh, first tell us what it is, and then why don't you show them the 7-minute video about it.
Of course, it's called organized stalking, and I can actually pull the video up right now.
Okay. It's really worth us actually showing you this video because there's no way to really grasp it. Turn it around.
Law-abiding and defenseless individuals, typically for years, with the goal of destroying their lives. What is organized stalking? Organized stalking is a method of covert harassment perpetrated by a large group of people against a single individual. The lengthy process begins when the group selects a target. Once the selection is made, the campaign of character assassination begins with the intention of verbally destroying the individual's reputation, career, family, and community standing. Simultaneously, he or she is placed under legal surveillance, and is where private information gained from the illegal electronic monitoring is distributed. Isolating the target renders him forever defenseless and unless that groups of paid and unpaid stalkers begin a 24/7 harassment operation. The paid stalkers are full part-time and infiltrate every aspect of the target's life. The unpaid stalkers are usually neighbors, even family members of the victim. In a successful smear campaign, you would think they are doing a good deed. Harassment techniques are many. A common one is to sensitize the target to ordinary discordant sounds like cuffing and car alarms, and then harass him with those sounds continuously and indefinitely. Targeted individuals' TIs. Targets are ordinary people who, for the most part, don't know why they were selected. Once the target has been selected, the group will commit significant resources to destroying the target. The harassment can go on for decades. Why these groups? They're not foreign terrorists or anti-government extremists. The network can consist of your next-door neighbor to any member of society, meaning that you would never ever suspect a targeted criminal intent. They are so well integrated and influential in the community that my best guess is that they are a converted form of a community watch group, policing with subterfuge and poisonous means. They are slowly and surreptitiously destroying the moral, social, economic, and political fabric of the state, and reconfiguring it in accordance with their criminal behavior. Whoever the organizers are, they are well-financed, highly sophisticated, unscrupulous, deceptive, relentless, and merciless. They have cult-like attributes. They are also tech-savvy and capable of invading every inch of your privacy and destroying every minute of your day. Their specialty, however, is to inflict emotional harm by using subtle yet effective psychological torture techniques with sadistic accuracy. Their intention is to murder their target without getting their hands dirty. It's the perfect hate crime. Frank Raffaele, current resident of Pine Grove, New Jersey, and formerly of Verona, New Jersey, where it started. The highly illegal surveillance component of organized stalking. The first component allows those who operate the stalking apparatus to accumulate information about the selected targets, as listed in the databases associated with the apparatus. The information is analyzed and scanned for any elements that may potentially be useful within the framework of the personal destruction campaigns waged by the operators of the apparatus. The effect of the surveillance is multiplied by many times via the use of GPS tracking units secreted onto the target's primary means of transportation. These tracking units were then valuable to the operators of the apparatus in terms of providing for the accurate direction of harassment activities. Centralized database store. The information, often manipulated, modified, and or appended with outright fabrication, is subsequently cataloged within the system's databases through the surveillance. A vast quantity of detail is accumulated about each individual target, especially as it concerns the patterns of the selected target's daily life and activities. This prodigious quantity of information lends itself to making the additional fabrications associated with the individual readily believable by consumers of the information, simply because so much else seems to be known. Dispatch component. This is the component that provides for the operators most of the damage inflicted upon selected targets, primarily using telecommunications devices, cell phones, and automobile navigation units. The conspiracy to harass is automated by computerized linkages between the databases described above and the cell phone and automatic unit network. The communications linkages are made automatically and directed to those program members who carry harassment network nodes, cell, net units, etc., but only to those who are proximate to the selected target. The computerized communications linkages are made automatically to the proximate program members, those closest to the target, thanks to the GPS tracking of the target, as described in the surveillance component. This automatic direction of communications to specific telecommunications nodes/devices facilitates the swarming of targets, as has been often described by sane and contemporary accounts of gang stalking. Information which has been tailored to the situation of the targeted individual and has been designed to provide for the ongoing emotional, financial, and psychological destruction of select targets is automatically dispensed from the database system in the form of a screen theater harassment script. Analysis. The operators of the apparatus use a deflection mechanism to diffuse the responsibility for slander committed by node carriers, simply by employing a large group of antagonists to effect a death of 1,000 small cuts scenario. Many harassment laws are based upon the repeated harassments of a single individual. By using a conspiracy of many, the coordinators hope to responsibility for actions. Legal remedy. The purveyors of this injustice do indeed affect a dilution of responsibility for individual note carriers. However, they do not deflect responsibility from themselves. Since the major enabler for all stalking network activities is the telecommunications system, the perpetrators are theoretically possibly exposed to discovery by natural routing and traffic logging features of the communications channels that they are using. Several of the book's laws may be applicable at the arraignment of these criminal lawbreakers as follows. USC U.S. Criminal Code 4722-381C, repeatedly initiating communications with a communications device solely to harass an individual or individuals. Typical sentence in recent cases 3 years is incarceration. USC U.S. Criminal Code 1825-11, interception of electronics communications, application surveillance. USC U.S. Criminal Code 1825-11.c, disclosure of intercepted communications, application surveillance, database storage, dispatch ops. USC U.S. Criminal Code 1810-38-5A1, redirection of website, application general harassment information activities. The aforementioned codes are generic, but our specific circumstances amplified by conspiracy clause. The resultant case law is known as conspiracy to harass using a telecommunications device. See search engine results under those terms. The operators of the stalking apparatus are initiating communications to communications devices for the sole purpose of engaging in the harassment of individuals. They are doing this on a vast scale to many unfortunate victims due to the large scale of their operations, as opposed to the acts of the individual note carriers. The operators of the stalking apparatus surveillance, database, and dispatch have neither immunized themselves to prosecutions, nor have they deflected responsibility for their actions. In our pursuit of justice, communications is key. The communications system that they use is the underlying enabler for most of their nefarious activities. Fortunately for us, it is, with proper constitutionally valid investigation, traceable, and stalking is a rich name. Despite what has become a part of traditional and organized crime that is networking through the United States and some other countries. Organized crime groups and criminal elements from all walks of life use or hire for vague criminal organized gang stalking crews to attack targets to cover up financial or other crimes. These criminals contract with a covert organized gang stalking attack crews to silence any potential witness or troublemaker, whether real or imagined, that could possibly affect their lives. Contract attack squad to discredit and silence using their criminal gaslighting methods. These organized criminal crews attack victims, friends, family, neighbors, and many people in the community. There is always a reason someone is targeted, and most will know why it started it, but apparently, some victims never know what happened to them, why it is happening, or who triggered the overwhelming attack. This is probably because the trigger event was irrelevant and meant nothing to the victim, but was perceived as possibly damaging by the criminals involved. The victim could have upset somebody, and now that person simply wants revenge. A very lucrative enterprise. This is a very lucrative criminal enterprise for many of the perpetrators. People considered important to the success of a hit are offered large bribes to become the perp and start working the victim. Advanced communications such as the internet, cell phones, and voice-over internet protocol have accelerated the expansion and networking of these organized criminal groups. Their day-to-day stalking and harassment activities depend on these same technologies, plus highly illegal GPS and other high-tech devices, electronic spy and harassment equipment, and the use of satellites, what is known as remote neural monitoring. These criminal stalking and harassment groups go to extreme lengths to cover every aspect of their highly illegal covert operations. They try to have a plausible explanation for everything. The crimes they commit are well-planned and easy to do, but easily deniable.
Okay. Josh, I apologize to our viewers because I wasn't, you just got into town today and I wasn't even going to have you as a guest, so we weren't really able to, it would have been great for people to get to see a close-up of that, but I think if they listen carefully, they'll get a great deal of information that is needed.
Yeah.
I wasn't going to volunteer this information when I first was going to interview you tonight, but I think it's important that I do. I, too, am also a gang stalk victim, and I went on the Beckerfield show to try and find some help and relief from what's going on.
Yeah.
And of course, you know that I didn't find any assistance from him.
Yeah.
That's how me and you met. You contacted me and saw me on Beckerfield, and now you're my roommate. So I'm really glad you moved here to out Los Angeles. And now the rest of the show is going to really be about your story, not mine. I just want people in West Hollywood to know that if by any chance you use drugs and you think you're delusional in any way whatsoever, you're probably not. This is really, I've already met 10 personal friends of mine that this is happening to, not drug users. You've met a few of them earlier today.
Actually, a lot of the targeted individuals do not use drugs.
Most of them
are, a lot of them are older women. Some of them are whistleblowers for corporations and government. And a lot of them, they don't know why this is happening to them.
How many people in the United States or the world do you think this is happening to right now in your best estimate, based on your experiences being on Facebook?
About 300 to 400,000 people.
Right. Now, that seems to be consistent with the fact that the Discovery Channel interviewed me to be on a reality television series about people like me, like you, who I should actually introduce you to the producers, are being gang stalked. It's terrorizing, isn't it?
Yeah, it's really terrorizing. They've destroyed my life. I had a home. I had everything I could possibly, want. I mean, my life was going in the right direction, and since this has happened, I don't have a whole lot anymore.
Can you tell me when it started when did you first realize this was happening to you, and also, when did you start realizing that this was more of an organized effort?
It started back in the summer of 2012. My ex-girlfriend was the one who actually conspired against me. She started acting really funny, kind of really fishy. She started talking to me in like weird metaphors, double meanings. She would put me in situations that I was unaware of, really compromising situations, basically to entrap me. Also coercion. My cell phone was tapped. I had a black Silverado parked outside of my apartment 10 to 15 times, right outside of my window.
Right.
My neighbors were conspiring against me as well with her. Whenever we actually dropped her off at work one day, we went about 5-10 miles down the road, and that same black Silverado pulled up to the house that my neighbors went to, that they brought me to. So
right.
that was actually, that confirmed that they were a part of it.
Right. What has all this done to your life, as far as how has it affected your family?
In the very beginning, my family really didn't understand it. I was explaining. I went a year without knowing that it was actually called organized stalking, and I was telling my family, I'm having weird occurrences in my home with my electronics. My ex-girlfriend was completely plotting and conspiring.
Give us an example right there. What kind of, I'm sorry to interrupt you, but give me an example of some of the weird things that happened to your technology, your phone.
My phone was completely, they owned my phone. They could mirror my phone. They could implant false evidence on my phone. They were
create a false history of where you've actually been to, mirror different sites, like kind of like identity theft. You think you're checking into your bank account, and you really, could be checking into any possible illegal site there is without you even having any knowledge of it, right?
Yeah, they can actually, they can mirror your cell phone and the camera from the front of your phone while you're doing something completely different. They can access different websites in order to make you look bad, and then record you from that camera on the front of your phone.
Right.
My neighbors would tap on the walls at very specific times just to kind of annoy me, just kind of harassment.
Right.
And then it was basically months and months of conditioning.
So this isn't really like a person hiding behind a bush spying on you. This is covert, but also very out in the open. It's meant for you to know they're stalking you, but for no one else around you to know, right?
Exactly.
So can you expand on that?
Yes. So basically, what they do is they use a formula called NLP.
I've never had anyone just say exactly what I wanted them to expand. That's funny. Okay.
So basically, they use something called NLP, which is neuro-linguistic programming. So for instance, say you walk outside, right, and you go into your car, and somebody walks by, and they're clicking a pen, and they're looking at you kind of weird. You're like, okay. You shrug it off. You go to the store, grocery store, you're buying groceries. You come out to your car, and you got a lady pushing her cart, and she's almost runs into you, and she's clicking a pen. You're like, wow, that had to have been a coincidence.
Right, so it's like how dogs, like your condition?
Yeah. So now you're on your way home, right?